In this video we will add dimensions to the ground floor plan. First of all, let us create a new layer. Initials, dimensions for the name. The color should be white and the line weight, let's make that 0.13. And do make sure that the layer is current, although we'll not be using it just yet. Now before we can draw the dimensions, it's best to create a new layer or a new dimension style. So go to the Annotate tab and click on this little icon here to pull up the Dimension Style Manager. Now for the basis of a new dimension style, AutoCAD uses an existing style, so it's best to use this one, ISO 25, and we'll click on New, and rather than call it a copy of ISO 25, let's call it either My Dim Style or Initials Dim Style, something appropriate for the name, and click Continue. Now that opens up this window with lots of tabs across the top. We will amend some items on some tabs but not on others. So first of all, make sure that all of these properties here are by layer. Under the dimension lines section, also for the extension lines section, let's change all of those to by layer. And for extend beyond the dim lines, we're going to change that to 100 and offset from the origin by 100. Now the preview window will look a bit strange for now, but once everything is amended it should look better. So I think that's everything on the first tab. Go to the Symbols and Arrows tab, and for the arrowhead choose the first one to be Architectural Tick, and that should automatically select the second one, and it's okay for the leader to be left as Closed Filled. The arrow size, we need that to be 100 so it's in proportion, and again I think the other properties on that particular tab are okay. The text tab then is next, so standard text style is okay, or if you have an Arial style you could also select that. For the color, rather than by block it should be by layer, and fill color we leave that as none. Text height, let's make that 150. And for text placement, above, centered and left to right, that's okay. And offset from the dimension line by 100, and make sure that it is aligned with the dimension line. So as you can see, the preview window is now looking a lot better. On the Fit tab then, if there isn't enough room to place both text and arrows inside extension lines, the first thing to move outside the extension line is, let's choose Always Keep Text Between the Extension Lines, and for the text placement, when text is not in the default position, place it over the line without a leader. Let's choose make sure it shows here draw dim line between the extension lines, and let's make sure that option there, Scale Dimensions to Layout, is selected. The final tab we need to amend anything on is the Prem Units tab. So decimal for the unit format is fine. Precision, we would normally want that as 0, so let's choose that, and rather than a comma we want that to be a period or a full stop. So everything should now be okay. Again, you need to make sure that that layer is set as, or that dimension style is set current. so that we can use it. And now we're back into the drawing with the new dimension style created. So we can go to the Home tab, the layer GI Dimensions is selected, but what we should do is turn off the hatching layer, just because it sometimes interferes with the exact placement of the leaders. So back to the Annotate tab, and we'll choose Dimension, and for the first dimension we will select this length of wall here. So let's put in this first dimension here, and because you have text between the dimension line and the wall, we need to make sure that's down sufficiently. So let's try 500. That looks okay. What we can also do then is go back up, and rather than use this linear dimension, we can now choose Continue, and that will continue from the last dimension and allow us to dimension all the elements along the front face of the building. At this point we'll have a longer extension line, and that just allows us to complete the drawing. Now you'll notice here that some of these dimensions are a little bit odd, they're not brick dimensions, so what we can do is select these particular dimensions, and we can go to the Properties palette and change the individual precision for those dimensions. Let's make it 0.0, and as you can now see, those dimensions will be brick dimensions, such as that one 552.5, the one over here 777.5. So that's the principle for putting in the external dimensions. When you're on the side, the dimensions over here should be out by 500. But when you're at the top of the building, let's say an example here is that dimension, don't need to make that just as much, so let's say 200, maybe 300 would be better there. So 300. When you're on the side of the other side of the building here, once again 300 would be sufficient. And in terms of the internal dimensions, well, the placement of those, a lot of that depends on the position of the furniture and also the position of the room names. So for now you can draw some dimensions in, just giving enough space. So in this case 500 again should be sufficient, and for the dimensions going the other way, again we'll put in a dimension of 500, but generally try to keep dimensions lining up. For example, this room here, we should line it up with that one so that they're in line for consistency. So that's the general process in adding in the dimensions. Once all your dimensions are in, the drawing should look something like this. Don't forget to include the overall dimensions, and don't forget that there's a dimension here that is left out, and there's a little dimension here that's left out. I suppose maybe in practice you might want to put them in, but I've just left them out at this point. So once that's done, again as I said, put all the internal dimensions in, but the position of those may change depending on the position of your furniture and the room names.